Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. So this is a youth class. Why is there a youth class? Same philosophy for everyone, isn't it? We're all Dehino Srinyata Dehe Kumarang Yovanam Jara Tata Dehantara Praktihi Dhiras Tatra Namupiti. So it's the same for everyone. Everyone is born as a child's body, youth's body. The word youth comes in Bhagavad Gita. Yovana, the state of being a youth. Then old age and then death. And one who is dhira, one who is steady in intelligence, stitadhi, he is not disturbed in death. So why is there a separate youth class? Because it's true for everyone, right? We all get born, we all die. Everything in Bhagavad Gita is the truth that is spoken by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. It's true for young people, old people, white people, black people, normal people, crazy people, educated people, uneducated people. It's true for everyone. So why do we have a separate youth class? Well, I guess because the consciousness of youth is somewhat different. That's why the children's class, we have a children's class, right? Because children, we generally deal with them in a different way to adults. Although sometimes we find that children are spiritually more receptive than adults, because in this lifetime at least they haven't had their consciousness so much filled with materialistic and atheistic ideas as the adults have. Often children are very spiritually open-minded, or even ask good questions. Often children ask very good questions, right? Now, why is everything like this? And the parent just says, shut up. Don't ask questions like that. You won't win the Konbanega Kropati. They don't ask questions like that. Now it's coming back. I saw it in Bombay. Amitabh, who's now no longer Yovana, he's definitely in the Jara stage of life, in the old age stage of life. Oh, what a big party they're going to have when he passes on. Even if India beats Pakistan in cricket on the same day, it'll be bigger news if he passes away on the same day. So yeah, Amitabh Bachchan is making a comeback, Konbanega Kropati. So there's not the kind of question they ask. What is the purpose of life? They ask all kind of stupid questions like, how many films did Amitabh Bachchan... I don't know what kind of questions they ask. I guess they ask, how many films did Amitabh Bachchan star in, and all silly questions like that. I heard one time they had on that program the question, which God is worshipped in ISKCON? I think they must have. Yeah, so, children, generally it's thought that they're not very philosophical. They need a different approach, and they tend to be, more disturbed in mind than, in some ways, than adults. Just like you're all supposed to be young adults. So, children usually jump around, scream, yell, young children. And by the time you reach a young adult age, you're supposed to be less disturbed in mind. Actually, the mind's just as disturbed, it's just that there's some social conditioning, that's all. So that you don't just jump up and scream and yell, but the adults are just as crazy as the children. But they just don't show it so much. That's all. So youth, it's supposed to be, legally, youth are also adults, right? What age is voting age in India? 18, I think. Is it? 18 is voting age. So legally you're supposed to be an adult, although it's generally considered that an older person will be more responsible. Just like in the Western countries, if you hear about football hooligans, have you heard of football hooligans? Famous in the great country I come from. England is famous for many things, including football hooligans. So you don't expect to see a gang of 70-year-old football hooligans. They're usually expected to be around 18 to 25 youth, actually. So it's expected that when you get older, you'll become more mature, or you just become a normal criminal, like a burglar or a thief or a armed robber, or not a football hooligan. That's for youth. So youth is expected. It's considered a romantic time of life when you fall in love and all that kind of thing. So youth is expected to be somewhat different. So just as we have programs for children, special programs for children, because their mentality is somewhat different. So for youth also. And with society changing so much all the time, the youth in every generation are different. Previously, over thousands of years, the culture in any part of the world didn't change much. And everyone had their specific role to play. There wasn't much confusion in society. I mean, confusion is always there, but everyone had their particular role to play. So young people knew that they had... New means it was just so much part of the culture that no one questioned it. The youth would serve the elderly people, but now the idea is that, well, the youth, their specific job is to oppose everything that elderly people say. And I was just in America, and there in America are many of my God brothers and God sisters who are all, when we joined, we were all in the youth stage. Now we're all in the old age stage. I'm among my God siblings, I'm one of the youngest. When they ask me how old I am, 53. Oh, you're only 53. It's quite young for Prabhupada disciples. So they're all mostly old, and in the Western countries, old people are considered useless. They're generally considered useless, a burden on society. Useless because they can't enjoy themselves and they can't work hard, so what else is there left in life to do? So they're just a burden, and probably increasingly, Srila Prabhupada predicted that the time will come when they just kill the old people because they're just consuming they have nothing to offer, or even if they can do a little work, the amount of maintenance they need is not worth it. So just like in the modern age, old cows, people don't keep them. They don't give any milk, so what's the use? Just kill them and you get some money for them. So like that, the time may come when they do that to human beings also. And they're old and what's the use? They're useless. So just kill them. Better for everyone concerned. It may be considered like that. So youth is considered the best time of life. So I said to my God brothers there, better you come to India, because in India the old sadhus are respected. People will listen to you. Whereas in the West, they just think, old person means they're already useless. Very demoniac culture, actually. Certain aspects of it, many aspects of it, are very demoniac. So we see it in the West in particular. To reach out to the youth, it requires the youth to do so. And turned out devotee preaching, it requires young people to go and mix with the young-bodied devotees, to mix with the youth of America or Britain or wherever it is, because the youth, they don't want to listen to anyone else. They're just like they're in their own world. They have their own lingo, their own dialect. One devotee I was speaking with, he's overseeing spearheading youth preaching in one of our ISKCON temples in America. He's 36 years old. He said, it's beyond me. It's difficult for me to connect with them, with the young people, because they don't even want to listen to anyone. They think it's already too old. When Srila Prabhupada was preaching in America in the 1960s, there was a motto among the hippies who Srila Prabhupada he brought some of them to devotional service: never trust anyone over 30. That was their idea. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he was more than twice 30 years old, but he connected with people on the spiritual platform. And the hippies were trying to be different to everyone else, but they all ended up being different in the same way. So then what was different? Grow your hair long. At that time, for men to have long hair was considered sacrilegious. Do you know what that means, sacrilegious? It means literally means blasphemous, or something very, very wrong. Although Jesus is depicted as having long hair, but men after him were not supposed to have long hair. So men grew their hair long. They didn't work. They smoked marijuana, ganja, and various things. They were trying to be different, but they all ended up being different in the same way. But Prabhupada was also very different, so they liked that. Srila Prabhupada was different. He wasn't different in the way that they were. And what happened was the hippies, they were enjoying sense gratification in a different way to that of the broader society. In the broader society, or what they call the straight culture, people were enjoying sense gratification in what was considered a respectable way. And the hippies, they were also interested in sense gratification, but in a manner that the broader society did not consider respectable. But Srila Prabhupada was different in a completely different way. He was actually different because he was not promoting sense gratification at all, which is more different than the hippies could even imagine. Or as Jayadvaita Swami sometimes says, what happened to the hippies? So the real ones, they all joined the Hare Krishna movement because they were trying to be different, and they were purportedly looking for something spiritual. So they joined the Hare Krishna movement. So youth is a different time of life. It's in the modern age, because actually it's all due to this media propaganda that it shapes our lives so much, and people are so stupid they don't realize it. That the youth think that we're all different and we're not going to follow what anyone says, but they're all this just comes from the media, what happens is, from a very young age, the advertisement companies have worked out that if we can get the children to buy products, we get them at a young age, so they advertise in such a way that the little children, they watch TV, and then they harass their parents, buy me this, buy me that, and then they train the children from a young age through the TV to be consumers and buy their products. And then they create this whole image of youth. You see, we're doing something different. We're not going to follow everyone else, but they end up buying all the Nike shoes and all these kind of things, and they think, yeah, sure, we're being different, but you're just brainwashed like that, and you're just a faithful follower of these multinational corporations. So their only aim is to extract the money from your... Actually, people don't have money in their wallet. It's all theoretical money these days. Money doesn't exist. I mean, not as a dollar bill. There are some, but most of the money is just some numbers in a computer, right? You have a plastic card and you swipe it every time. Inside the account it comes down like that. So anyway, this whole idea that youth are being different and we have our own ideas, but it's all just everyone is molded by the educational system and the mass media, and even people, they think that we're being different and we're independent, but it's all rubbish, just all... I don't know about you, but the youth are also just brainwashed like anyone else in this miserable material world, especially in the modern consumer society, because the multinational corporations, they see youth as it's a big market, and for now and for the next 40 years we want to get these people, and so they mold the minds of the youth to purchase their products. So fortunately, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, at least myself in my youth, I managed to cut out of this. It's a very liberating act to do, a very bold act to stop watching TV. You think, oh, you're not watching TV. And stop listening to all this rock music and all this bogus music, which is just meant for dragging our consciousness down. Oh, you're not enjoying yourself. You're not listening to rock music. You're not watching TV. Enjoying yourself, this is just psychological manipulation. That's all of it. Just to cut out of it. And cut our own course in life. Our own course means, anyway, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, it happens to be a fact. Manusha partha sarvashaha. Everyone's within the scope of Krishna's control. Sarvam samapnoshu. Arjuna says about Krishna that Krishna encompasses everything. Krishna covers it. We're not outside of Krishna's scope ever. But we can either be in Maya or we can be sheltered at the lotus feet of Krishna. So to make this decision, I'm going to be in Krishna's shelter, and I don't care what other people say. They can say, oh, you're not enjoying, you should enjoy yourself in your youth. What is this enjoy? Enjoy means you work like an ass to get some money. That's the main thing. You have to work to get money, and then you spend it in all kinds of stupid ways. To do stupid things which have no benefit to you whatsoever, and buy all kinds of things that you don't need, that don't benefit you. Or you, just like you buy a pair of Nike shoes, you can buy another pair of shoes which is just as good for like 1/10 the price, but you have to have that Nike written on it. You see in that it's like all these different brand names. It's just a piece of rubbish made in China, and that's all, like everything else. But it's got the brand name on it. So this is all nonsense. But to break out of that and say, look, I'm not to be manipulated. That's freedom, isn't it? Everyone's manipulated, even those who think, yeah, we're young, we're doing our own thing. Yeah, we're rejecting the whole society. All rubbish. You're not rejecting. You're just being manipulated in a different way. That's all. So better be manipulated by Krishna and come to, just like Prabhupada, he gave something completely different. Just a totally different perspective, by which, just like the hippies, they thought they were breaking out of the broader society, but ultimately they all had to go back to it. The hippies, they went back to university, and after a few years of roaming the streets and taking drugs and this and that, and after some time, Bill Clinton, he used to smoke pot too. So you'll find, like this, some years ago, one of the famous rock stars in America died, Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, and like the governor of some state was offering some tribute to him. I mean, this man was famous as a big ganja user. So, but the heads of the different states were glorifying him because they're all from the same generation, and they're all hippies, and they all went back to the broader society, because what is there to do? And nowadays you'll find these old men from the old rock groups of the 1970s going around. I saw on a plane I see so many movies on planes. I never once put the headphones, but you can see it right in front of you. So there was some movie of the Rolling Stones tour of Canada. The Rolling Stones, you probably all heard of the Rolling Stones. There's one famous rock group. So you see these men, like they're old men, and they spend all their life doing lots of, having lots of sex and taking lots of drugs, and they look like they could get a part in some vampire movie. They wouldn't have to have any makeup, They really, especially that Keith Richard, he's the number 2 man. He looks. I think he must have used so much heroin in his life. It's amazing he's alive still. He looks. Have you seen? You don't see heroin users much in Dubai, but they look like. In London, we used to, going on book distribution, we used to see these heroin users. There's so many hanging around. They're quite good for distributing books too, because they usually have a lot of money. Somehow they steal it or whatever. So when they're intoxicated, it's very easy, which is most of the time. It's easy to just take the money from them and give them a book. So, anyway, I saw this video of them, and there's these old men, they're like 60-something, and they're standing on the stage with their guitars and their tight jeans and wiggling their hips, as if they're, some like very sexy or something. And it's just ridiculous. So yeah, so, and that's what I'm saying. Some of them, the old rock stars, are still going around twanging their guitars and trying to get a few dollars here and there so they can pay for their drugs and I don't know what else. What do they do with their lives? It's pathetic, actually. And I guess there's so many rock groups and punk groups and this and that. I missed it all by Prabhupada's grace. I cut out long ago from all that stuff. So it's, this whole idea that we're young and we're going to be different, it's all bogus. It's all been tried before. You just end up the same as everyone else. It all ends up in ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha. It may be in different varieties. Instead of wearing one kind of fashion, you wear another kind of fashion. Just like when I was a kid, I was growing up in a town close to London, so we'd see so many commuters going into London. And those were the days when they used to wear, he was very famous, the British stockbroker. He has a brolly, which means an umbrella, black umbrella, and a bowler hat. You know what this bowler hat is? You don't know. So one kind of funny hat that all the British, now they don't wear it. So it's like that. And So all the stockbrokers, they'd be walking down to the station in the morning. And my father's house was close to the station, and they'd take the train into London. So the stockbrokers, they'd all have black suits and white shirts and black ties and black brolly and a black bowler hat and a straight face, smiling is not allowed. Seriously, it's a very, very serious thing. If someone smiles, can't be bona fide. It must be a Russian spy or something. So, but ultimately, what's it all for? It's for ahara nidra bhayamaitu. And there's our generation, all dressed in all kinds of weird clothes and deliberately not being like that. But it all comes to the same thing. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. The result of which is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha. Birth, death, old age and disease. So this whole idea, we're young, we're different, we're going to show, we're going to do something better. Previous generations messed it all up, but we're going to be the ecological heroes which will save the world. So all these ideas, but punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, it all just ends up in repeated birth and death, unless we take to Krishna consciousness. So this is the best thing to do with our youth. Actually, youth is already late for taking to Krishna consciousness. Should be Kaumara Acharat Pragya Dharman Bhagavataniha Dhurlabang Manusham Janma Tadapya Dhruvam Arthadam. This Krishna consciousness is so important that from the very beginning of life it should be taken up. If we think, now I'll take it up in youth, while I'm young, already so many years wasted. So better start now. Don't be late. Don't be later. From the very beginning of life, one should take up Krishna consciousness, understanding that this human life is very rare, but it's also very valuable. So it shouldn't be wasted in anything else but Krishna consciousness. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me. And I was talking about youth preaching in America. The one rule which this devotee who told me he's doing youth preaching in San Diego, which is like the one of the sense gratification capitals of America. So one rule he has is this: when you give a speech to the young people who are coming newly, the rule is the maximum length of the speech is 15 minutes. Because they can't listen more than that. Minds are too agitated. And also they have this idea that, why should I listen to anyone else? I know, I'm 17 years old. I know. Why should I listen to anyone? I already know everything. So it's a very puffed up idea. So thank you for listening for 20 minutes. Longer than 15 minutes. We're still a bit more advanced than in America. Any questions, comments, protests, new ideas? There's no new ideas. They think that there's no new idea, new philosophy. There's no new philosophy. There's only two. Ultimately, there are only two philosophies in the world. One is ahara nidra bhayamaitunamcha, and the other is sarvadhamang parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. There's only two. There's so many different philosophies. They all come in either sense gratification or surrender to Krishna. That's all. So, any questions, please?
Some people, they are introspective. They are experimental. And when they see that you don't get...
Do you have another mic? All right, I'll repeat the question. Some people are introspective and experimental. They don't just think, but they put it into practice.
Yeah, and then when we see that, I mean,
just like the people that used to try to fly. They got an idea, and then they jumped off a cliff with some artificial wings. Experimental. The result was, rest in peace. Experiment didn't work. Yeah. Then.
Yeah, so then only, I mean, when they see that they fall, and then only they surrender.
Only then they surrendered. They tried to enjoy material life, they failed, and then they surrendered to Krishna. Yeah, so what's your proposal? We should try to enjoy material life first?
No, I mean, so there
We've already been doing that for millions of lifetimes. Yeah.
But you said that youth is quite late, but then there are some people who join, I mean, from that age itself, who are not, I mean, you know.
Some people come to Krishna consciousness at which age are you talking
Maybe
about?
Maybe in the youth.
In youth,
yeah. Because they are newly introduced to that by outside parties or something like that. Because they were not from a devotee.
They weren't raised in a devotional family. Yeah, well, it's never too late for Krishna consciousness. But I'm just saying, if we think that now I'm young, so I got it. Well, it's definitely better to sooner the better. Yeah. Ultimately, we're not the body at all. You can take to Krishna consciousness after age of 70. There are some devotees came here from Goa. It's Purushottam Chaitanya Prabhu's parents. So your father, by your grace, took to Krishna consciousness at the age of what? 70 something. Yes. He's 82 now. So, whatever age, sooner the better. One moment later is too late, but it's never too late. Just the idea that every second should be spent in Krishna's service. Anything else, please? Thank you for that observation. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Yeah.
Maharaj, there was this person who asked this question, but the person is not clear. If the question was that if God is there, why are people suffering in Africa?
God is there. Why are people suffering in Africa? Why in Africa? Why you ask about Africa? They're not suffering. They're not suffering in Dubai. There's this idea that people only suffer in Africa. They suffer everywhere. It's here we have air-conditioned suffering, and there it's non-air-conditioned. This is sophisticated suffering here. If God is there, why is there suffering? If God is there, God should come and give me a massage every day, right? Clean up my stool after I pass. And God's there to make us happy, right? And happiness means sense gratification. So what's wrong with him? It must not exist. Must be that I'm God. That's what I always thought. This question is based on a total misunderstanding of the nature of God. And the asking of this question is the reason why we suffer, actually. Because when we understand that we are meant for His happiness and He's not meant for our happiness, then we can begin to enter actual God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. The idea that we are meant for sense gratification causes us to exploit each other, or to attempt to exploit each other, which leads to sinful reactions, which leads to suffering in Africa and everywhere else. Krishna gives us the minute independence to choose to serve Him or not. If we choose not to serve Him, we take up the attitude that I will enjoy myself separately from Krishna, then we inflict suffering on others. And as a result of that, we have to suffer ourselves. Being in this mature world means there must be suffering, because everyone is trying to exploit everyone else, just like people think that, let us enjoy eating meat, and then they inflict suffering on the animals. So that generates sinful reactions. So this very question, if why is there suffering? If there's God, then why is there suffering? It reveals complete ignorance of the nature of God and of our relationship with Him. In the question, inherent in the question is the answer. Because we have such an attitude that God is meant to serve me. God is supposed to serve human society. God's only function is to facilitate man's sense gratification. Inherent in the question is the cause of the suffering. So, anything else? If not, we'll finish. Yeah.
What happens to people? Like they say, whatever you think towards the end of your death, you become that, or the next Janma. So
they say, well, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yang yang vapi swaram bhavam tyajyate kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. It's not they say, but specifically Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that according to well, specifically what we think of at the time of death that shapes our future life. Yeah.
So what if someone is dreaming about something in his sleep? Does he still...
What you dream of in your sleep at the time of death? Well, from what we can understand from both from the Vedic literature and from observation that at the time of death, it's not that just you're in the middle of a dream and all of a sudden you die. Of course, people do die in their sleep, but even during sleep there are different levels. There's actually, according to Vedic psychology, there are 3 levels of consciousness: Jagrata, Swapna, and Susupti, which means the waking state, the dreaming state, and the very deep sleep. So people who die in their sleep, it's not that they're going to be in what's called dreamless sleep and die from that. So in dreamless sleep, it's almost as if the consciousness is suspended. And according to Shastra, actually at that time it's the Atma is lodged in Brahman. It's the state of like impersonal, like being in the impersonal Brahman. If you have a very deep sleep. So you don't go, it's not that if you're in a dream and in the dream you're enjoying doing something and then you die and then you take birth like that. But anyway, even if you're in a very deep sleep and you pass away, but even then there's the accumulate, even in the dormant state, there's the accumulated effect of our thoughts throughout life which will mold our next life. Yeah, anything else? Alright, so we'll finish there. Hare Krishna. Just, you're waiting for me to say and finish?
You said regarding that in a deep sleep, the Atma is situated in Brahman.
In deep sleep, the Atma, goes to Mahavishnu.
Is it the soul leaves the body at that particular moment, or they just situated in that particular...
Soul, may leave the body, but is connected also. If it becomes disconnected, then it's death. But connected through the subtle connection is there. Doesn't completely leave it. There's a connection, then the soul can come back. Sometimes it happens if someone's very deeply sleeping and someone tries to jerk them awake, then they actually die. Because the soul is away from the body. And then if they're jerked back, the subtle connection may be broken. That's why you should wake someone up gently. And you feel that also. If you're sleeping and someone jerks you away, you feel it's like being shocked, isn't it? Anyway, these are all details of psychological study. It doesn't have that much Of course, we can study all these things, but they are details after all. The main point is to fix the mind on Krishna. All these things are discussed in Vedic literature, Vedic psychology. All right, anything else before? And then I'll say we're finished, and then someone else will put up their hand also. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Sometimes, what if you see? I mean, in your dream, you're seeing something related to Krishna.
3, 2.
You
see something related to Krishna. What if? Well, very good.
No,
Waking or sleeping, any relation with Krishna is very good. Isn't it? Should be. Good.
I mean, suppose it's the day of Balaram Jayanti and you're able to see.
Balaram Purnima is the actual.
Yeah, and you're able to see.
Balaram Jayanti is an introduced term. It's not a technically correct term. Yeah, and then
you see in the dream that.
You see Balaram in any day or any night, it's very good. Obviously, should be good.
You see Vrindavan temple.
Yeah, anyway. If you see Krishna in a dream, very good. When you wake up, go on with your devotional service. I saw in a dream this and that. Okay, now you're awake. Now chant Hare Krishna and do some devotional service.